My name is Alex. Thank you for holding the applause. Um, I used to play a lot of video games. I mean, I still do, but I used to as well. Um, and I applied to Riot Games, I think almost 4 years ago. I chose them because they have games in the name. Um, I was considering Games Workshop first because they also have games in the name, but it's the first word. So I figured it's more important. But they also have work in the name, and that was a bit of a deal breaker. You see, they call themselves Riot Games, but they only really have one game. It's kind of this con that's been going on for like 10 years. They've been fooling the community with their name. See, I didn't know that when I applied, and I was telling the interviewer how I love all of their games. I think I made a fool of myself a little bit. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Come on, seriously, who hasn't heard of League of Legends? Come on. I played stupid amounts of League of Legends before I applied, and it was actually kind of funny. One of the first interviews that was meant to be assessing my game knowledge with League of Legends, the interviewer asked me how many games of League of Legends do I think I played, just kind of like estimate. And my answer went something like this. And yeah, that was the interview. That was over. She just moved me along right away. That's 58 minutes that I gave her back, basically, with just that one answer. That's how good I am at interviewing. But yeah, so Riot Games, video games, all that kind of stuff. Does anybody here play video games, like, at all? Okay, I've got like 2 people, maybe 3. All right, I guess that's pretty good. Have you guys been playing since you were little? I think I was like 7, maybe 8 when I started playing video games. I started on this really old machine that some of you may have not even be around to hear of. It was called a Sinclair Spectrum S3 Plus. It was the Plus because it had the little floppy disks instead of the shitty cassettes. Great machine. I think it had like 4 colors in total. Amazing. But that wasn't actually my first gaming experience. My first gaming experience was a little arcade and a little kiosk at the corner of the street where I used to buy Turbo Surprise gums. That was the main purpose. Like, the Romanians here know what I'm talking about. You're missing out if you don't know what Turbo Surprise gums are, just saying. But I used to go there to buy these gums, and at one point, out of nowhere, they just installed 2 arcade cabinets with 2 games. One of them was called Mustang. It was like an arcade side-scroller where you played a World War I era biplane that would shoot bullets in the front and bombs down below. And basically, that was the whole game. You had to destroy a whole bunch of stuff and progress through the levels. And the other game was Double Dragon, which is like a side-scroller kind of fighting game kind of thing. And my game of choice was Mustang, and I used to play with my best friend back then. And apparently, in a very short time, we got really, really good at it. So good, in fact, that we were starting to attract a little crowd around the arcade machine whenever we showed up at the little kiosk. And we even got to the point where, because we had gotten so far ahead into the game, we were beating levels that nobody there had ever seen before. The kids actually started putting in quarters whenever we'd run out of lives, just so we could keep playing, so they could see more of the game, right? So that was my first professional gaming experience. At the age of 7.5, I was being paid to play video games. Okay, 1994. A Prodigy. A Pathfinder. Thank you. And, that kind of wore off pretty quickly. We beat the game. Mustang wasn't the fad anymore. I think kids moved on to, like, I don't know, snooker or kissing girls or whatever it is kids do at that age. I didn't really know because I was too busy playing video games. So many, in fact, that I started getting that, that question. The question, I'm sure some of you have heard that question, from a family member or a loved one or a friend. Don't you think you're playing too much? Wouldn't you rather do something else than waste your time playing video games? Like, why are you even playing these games? What's the benefit of spending all this time in these games? And, around the age of 8, I didn't really have an answer to that question. Well, I didn't really have a good answer to that question. I usually had answers along the lines of, nah, leave me alone. But I would have preferred something a little bit more eloquent, right? I could have said, here's what I could have said, all right? I could have said, well, you know what, Mom? Last year, Vivian Koves-Mastafi published a study about the benefits of playing video games and the impact on health, cognitive, and social skills in young children aged 6 and 11. And here are some of the things she found. It improves hand-eye coordination, fine motor skills, eyesight, eye agility, social skills, teamwork and cooperation, fair play, good sportsmanship, a capacity for learning, planning and problem solving, concentration, inductive reasoning, hypothesis testing, decision-making, perseverance, resilience, coping, handling, self-confidence and perceived self-efficacy, and joy. Mother. That would have been a pretty awesome answer coming from an 8-year-old, right? It would have been pretty impressive. But unfortunately, I didn't have that answer back then. I didn't even have it like 2 years ago because this study just went out last year. But it just goes to show you that this is the type of industry that has been quite often vilified, overlooked, misunderstood, misrepresented, and barely kind of like now in the past few years with work such as Ms. Masfati's or like Jane McGonigal, for example, which I'm sure you've seen in TED Talks, started kind of like, putting it in the correct kind of spotlight, because it's kind of always been in the spotlight, right? It's just been in the red tinted spotlight of Satan instead of the more kind of like, warm, natural hued spotlight of, this is good, this is nice, this is art. It makes us feel good. It's amazing. But then, like beyond all of these learnings, all of these kind of like benefits, like side benefits, I don't know what to call them. One of the greatest things that video games did for me is that they kind of like built up a skill set that allowed me to actually, function in the real world. Because like I said, I wasn't really doing any of that real world stuff in my young years, in my teens. Because I didn't have time. There was too many games to play, right? Like I had to finish Baldur's Gate 1, 2, the expansions, Neverwinter Nights, Icewind Dale, and that's just like the Forgotten Realms stuff, right? There was like 5 million other games that needed to be played, and there was nobody around to play them but myself. Or so I thought. But one of the greatest things that I actually learned from video games was the kind of social connection that you can create purely through passion and shared interest, right? It's one of those things that is very kind of hard to replicate in the real world because it's always going to get muddled by other kind of like ulterior motives, other reasons for interacting, right? You're talking to a coworker, they have ulterior motives for talking to you as well, right? It's not just, oh, you're nice, we're both nice, let's talk about stuff. It's not only that, right? There's going to be other stuff as well. The same for, potential romantic interest, the same for pretty much any kind of situation, except when you're both online, you're playing a game, somebody's like, hey, join my team, let's play together. There's no ulterior motive there. The only ulterior motive is, let's play together. And that keeps kind of like the interaction very pure and on a kind of level that you don't really get in the real world. And that's how I made some of my greatest friends ever. Like I made friends playing World of Warcraft that I trust, with my life. I trust with stuff that I wouldn't trust family members with, because my family's a little crazy. But let's not get into that. So that's just one of the things that I found a great medium to learn from. Right, English is another thing, right? Like, yeah, I've got a pretty decent command of English, I think. I hope. I don't know. I can't really hear myself because the feedback from the speakers is terrible. And I've developed most of it from video games. I've got vocabulary from RPGs. I've got speaking skills from talking on Ventrilo at night and trying to explain raid tactics in World of Warcraft and stuff like that, right? It's a kind of platform that is very hard to simulate. A lot of people have been trying to simulate it in educational software and like these types of conferences and stuff like that. But it's still kind of like small scale. It's hard to access, whereas games are awesome and they're everywhere, right? So I don't want to drone on for too long. So I'm just going to go straight into some. Oh yeah, if you're wondering why there isn't a presentation behind me, it's because the technical support at this conference has not really been. No, I'm kidding. There's no presentation. Right? This is it. That's just me. I don't do PowerPoint stuff. I don't really like slides. Right. So I was gonna say, tips and tricks to kind of like get the most out of your game playing. Right. You all play games. We all play games. It's a great thing to do, and it's a great thing to learn from. But there are a few ways to do it. Even better than just kind of like, oh, let's play this game kind of thing. Right. So the first thing would be do it mindfully, right? Mindfulness, not in the new agey, weird energies reaching for the cosmos kind of sense, but in the being aware of what you're doing, what you're interacting with, and how kind of sense, right? Let your curiosity take your mind to, how they did that. I wonder how they made that animation happen. How does that cinematic look so much better than all the other cinematics? How does this, storyline take me through these stages in a way that is a lot more involving than, a different storyline that I played? All that kind of stuff, right? What makes a game good, right? Being able to tell a good game from a bad game is just like entry level. That's like, that's level 1. At level 2, you'd be able to tell why the good game is better than the bad game. At level 3, you'd be able to refine that even further, right? And do all these kind of like cross analyses as to what you can kind of like cherry pick from different games to create, the perfect ideal game. And I think that's a great skill to have in game development, right? The fact that you're able to kind of like steal like an artist, there's a book on that, look it up, is a great skill to have, because it allows you to be, creative and free without actually having to reinvent the wheel. You take a wheel that somebody else invented and just make it better, or make it cooler, or you attach it to a better car, right? And that's what playing games mindfully can help you do. Then the other thing would be diversify, right? Don't play the same game for thousands of, you know what? If you have a game that you like so much that you're playing it for thousands of hours, do it. But also take the time to play other games in between, right? Cheat on your main game with your side games, kind of thing, right? It's not, it's if it's video games, it's okay. It's not, unethical or anything. Because in that way, you can kind of get a broader outlook on the gaming scene as a whole. You can get more understanding about the things that are cross-genre. Because if you're playing the same genre over and over, it's very easy to kind of like become used to the kind of things that you would expect, right? You're playing RPGs, you're used to leveling up, but suddenly you're playing a strategy game, and a strategy game that has level up components, right? And that makes you think, does this work? Does it make sense for my tanks to level up when they kill stuff? I don't know, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. It's just something to, help your wheels turn. So that's diversifying, basically. A third thing would be do it socially as well, right? That doesn't mean just, never playing alone or never kind of like having your own kind of me game time kind of thing. Please do. It's amazing. It's meditative. I love it. But also try to involve other people, right? And that could have any level you want it to have. It could be, a massive network of 500 people doing fleets and even line together, or it could be, your significant other or your best friend playing a completely different game, but in the same room with you, right? It's this kind of almost trance-like connection that happens through this shared passion and through this kind of shared, kind of mind sync kind of thing. And it's more fun, right? Like games are more fun with people, and relationship with people are more fun with games. Really, I tried it. I can vouch for that one. Okay, so that would be number 3, right? Socialize. Number 4, which one was number 4? Pretty sure I had 4 of these, because I did say in the title that there's 4 of them, and that the 7th one will shock you, which may or may not have been a mistake. All right, yeah. So number 4 is keep it honest. And what that means is several things, right? To give you kind of like a starting point of where this comes from, when I applied for Riot Games, when I was making my CV for the first time for the industry, I dedicated a whole separate page of my CV to my gaming history, right? I listed all the games I loved, all the games I finished, my career as a raid leader in World of Warcraft, and then a guild master. One of the youngest guild masters the guild has ever had. Thank you very much. Some of the things that I love about video games, all that kind of stuff, right? It was a full page of all this stuff. It was more than my education. It was about as much as my employment history, which was not much at that point. And I did that because I felt it was an important part of who I am. It was an important part of my passion and my being. And there was no reason to, kind of like let it slide or put it to the side or consider it unimportant, because it is important, right? And again, this doesn't mean, you have to print it out on a flag and wave it around, unless that's who you are. If that's who you are, that's fine. But it means, not having to kind of like shape your passion in a way that you think would fit best with whoever your audience is, right? If you're talking to someone who has no idea about the industry, no idea about the medium, don't tone it down. Don't say you spend the weekend hiking if you were hiking in Skyrim, right? Don't, it's like, And the reverse would be true as well, right? If you're talking to a mad, passionate gamer that wears it on their sleeve, don't try to get up on their level because that's never going to work. You can't fake passion. Passion is as much as you have, and you should be using as much as you have, right? And I'm going to end this with just one final story that I've got for you. It's a story about, let's say, about family ties in a way. So my biological father wasn't really in the picture, so I call my stepfather my father, right? He was a programmer, he was an engineer, and one day, I think I was about 9, it was a Friday evening, and he brought home a wooden arcade cabinet that he got from one of his clients that he said he wanted to fix, right, and then bring back to them. And it was the game Breakout. It was a version of the game Breakout, anyway. And he specifically told me, go to sleep, don't touch it. We'll turn it on tomorrow morning, figure out what's wrong with it, we'll fix it, and then we'll get to play a little bit. And of course, as a extremely obedient 9-year-old that I was, I went to sleep. No, I couldn't sleep with the elephant in the room. I couldn't sleep with the potentially holy grail of everything that was gaming sitting right there. So I woke up in the middle of the night. I went up to it. I fumbled with it for like half an hour before I figured out, plug it in, turn it on, blah, blah, blah. And I eventually, in the end, I managed to turn it on, right? What do you think happened when I turned it on? Shout it out. Guesses. Blown up. That's very Michael Bay, but no, that's not what happened. Anything else? Sound? I heard sound. Yes, that is exactly what happened. Sound. Massive, blasting, ear-shattering sound from this wooden arcade cabinet that was like 75% speakers. And it blasted this 8-bit arcade theme of Breakout throughout potentially 20 different apartments at 3 a.m. at night, right? And of course, my mom woke up, my dad woke up, 4 or 5 neighbors probably woke up as well. And then something very unexpected happened. My dad, called my mom down, put her to bed. And then he walked up to me and he was like, "You couldn't wait, could you?" I was like, "No, I couldn't wait." And then he asked me, do you want to try and fix it together? So we spent the next 3 hours or so him fixing it and me getting in the way. And then when it was close to dawn, he got it working and we started playing together. And I realized with great clarity around 9 a.m. on the following Saturday, as I was still awake and still playing Breakout with my dad, that I wasn't tired from not having slept the night. I wasn't hungry. I wasn't, I didn't want to watch the Saturday morning cartoons. I just wanted to play Breakout with my dad. Thank you. I have no idea how we're doing on time because I don't have a timer on this. I just have it myself, and I look fat. 9 more minutes. Oh my God, that's amazing. Yeah, we can have a whole conversation in 9 minutes. So if you have any questions or anything you want to throw my way, go ahead. Okay, I'm seeing some hands. Okay, that's a very good question. So the question was, do Riot Games plan to have employees in Romania in the future? So first of all, I can tell you for a fact that we do not intend to open an office in Romania anytime soon, an actual Riot Games office, but we do have a partner office. They're called TELUS, T-E-L-U-S, TELUS. They're essentially like a human resources type of company, outsourcing all that kind of stuff. They help us with frontline customer support. If that's something you'd like to do, you'd like to try kind of like getting in the general ballpark of Riot Games here in Romania, I think that'll be the best way to do it. We have another office also under TELUS in Sofia as well. So Bulgarian people, you guys can try that as well. And then actual Riot offices in Europe, we have a bunch of those as well, right? If you're willing to travel, we've got one in Berlin, that's the esports office. There's another one on the way as well, which is going to be a publishing office, also in Berlin. We've got another publishing office in Paris. So parlez-vous français? Go to Paris. Another one in Madrid as well, and one in UK, which is kind of just spinning up. And of course, the main European office for Riot Games is in Dublin. So if you're willing to travel to any of those countries, that's kind of how you do it. So a couple more hands back there, but yeah, there we go. Oh my God, can we have another question, please? I don't want to shame myself. So the highest I've ever been historically was Plat 5, which is, I guess it's okay. Right now I'm Silver 2, I think, with great ambition. Yeah, I deserve that. Anything else? See, that's a very good question, because that'd be finally killing my Riot Games, Riot Game joke. Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that we do have a bunch of R&D explorations in the works. So when I say a bunch, I mean more than one. That doesn't mean we're going to be, releasing more than one at the same time at any point in the future, but, it kind of points to me that we do intend to release at least one thing sometime in the future. Yeah, I know, right? That was like corporate lingo for he doesn't want to tell us. No, I mean, the thing is, I do want to tell you, but the problem is that we don't actually know ourselves, right? Like, we don't know as a company, because the way R&D process works for Riot is it's kind of like it's ready when it's ready kind of thing, right? Like, nobody really imposes deadlines in R&D. We've had R&D projects that have been going on for like years and then were scrapped internally because the team decided that that was the best thing to do. And at this point in time, it's just like, yeah, we're throwing a whole bunch of darts at the target, and when we finally hit the middle repeatedly with the same dart, we're probably going to be showing it to you. Okay, yeah. What is number 7? That's a very good question. Number 7 was the one about self-confidence and self-efficacy, right? And I can go a little bit in detail about that. I actually read the study. I don't recommend that you do it because it's absolutely huge and meandering. But there are a few pretty good summaries available online, as well as a whole bunch of other studies that talk about this. Basically, self-confidence and self-efficacy. Efficacy means, being able to do things, right? That's kind of like the broadest definition of it. And the way you gain confidence in your efficacy is when you can historically prove to yourself primarily that you are consistently able to achieve things, right? And this could be either, I don't know, like a good student consistently getting good grades, or consistently figuring out ways to solve problems, that kind of thing. And this is something that games help you with, right? Because even if you're the kind of person that up until a certain age maybe hasn't really had any kind of particular achievements in the real world, you've probably had them in games, right? You've probably have this kind of like historic backlog of efficacy where you were faster than all your friends. You finished more games than everybody else. You placed on a ladder somewhere. That kind of thing. You've got your 3 initials, high score on an arcade machine downtown. And that's the kind of thing that builds your self-confidence, right? When we're young, we're either very good with self-confidence or we're very bad with self-confidence. This is a psychological fact, and it depends a lot on parenting. And when a child that is in a situation where they lack self-confidence, they're going to be very meek, very shy. They won't really kind of like jump up to opportunities, even if they do present themselves. And it's mainly because they lack this historical efficacy. They honestly think that they haven't really done anything, so the chances of them doing this are extremely small. So they're not going to try in the first place. So this is where video games can help. Yes, that is exactly what I'm saying. Yes, that's a very good question. We don't consider that type of game a game. We consider it a bit of a mini game, and we have done a few more of those. We've actually recently released a mini game called Zig's Arcade Blast that was developed by some colleagues of mine in the US in a 3-day hackathon, and they did it with like community input. They were asking questions, and they were doing polls where they were kind of asking, so what kind of game should it be? What kind of style? What kind of music? That kind of thing. You can probably find it online if you search for it. Zig's Arcade Blast. Okay, go ahead. That's a very good question. Yeah, right. So, you can kind of apply this question to pretty much anything, really, right? What is your first step in an industry or a field that you have no connection with? If I want to start seeing classical Russian films, which is the first classical Russian film that I start with? And my answer would be any of them, really. Just pick one, go with it. If it's not your style, if you don't like it, if it's too hard, if it's too long, you'll just drop it and try another one, right? I'm pretty sure, if I knew something about a person enough that I can sort of psychologically profile them, I could figure out the types of games that they might like, even if they're not a gamer, and I could suggest, one or another. I don't know. Good examples could be some of the more kind of like artistic slash emotional based indie games. Those are usually less mechanically demanding because a gamer just starting out isn't really going to have all the mechanics that a veteran one might have. So that could be that could be an obstacle that you can leap through immediately just by taking a less mechanically challenging game. While at the same time being very kind of immersive, very involving. They usually tell stories, they create these atmospheres, so it could be a nice way to start it out. If you like horror, like horror indie games are great as well. They're usually very little mechanical demand and a lot of atmosphere, and you get a lot of bang for your buck, right? Like those games are usually like what, €3. Like entry level investment is pretty important as well. Like you wouldn't want to be paying €60 for a AAA game when you're just starting out, because then you might figure out within 30 minutes that it's not for you. So yeah. And before you ask, no, I would not recommend League of Legends as the first game for somebody who is not a gamer. Right. If I had the power to delete any champion, who would I delete? No, I would not delete Teemo because I think Teemo has a very specific niche that only he and he alone can fill. He's the kind of like love it or hate it, Satan's love child kind of thing, which is very hard to replicate. The fact that we actually managed to create this in the game is pretty impressive. I would actually delete Tryndamere. One of my bosses would probably disagree with that, but the other one would agree, so that's fine. Mainly because I think he's from a design point of view, he's got a very kind of outdated type of design. He's not particularly good to play as or against in many different situations. His whole kind of like kit revolves around getting in your face and then smashing away at it. And the whole counterplay against him revolves around stunning him when he tries to do that. So it's a very kind of like a binary type of relationship, where he either stomps on a lot of faces or he doesn't stomp on any face at all. So yeah, that's the one I would. Well, I wouldn't say I would delete him, but I would remake him pretty radically. And again, this is my own personal opinion. This does not reflect the views or the beliefs of Riot Games. Thank you. All right, that's about all I got. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you for participating. You've been pretty cool.